What I am about to say is where I think we can start to make a real impact on demand reduction. This is not based on the world according to me, but rather what officers are telling their local federation representatives up and down the counties. Sir, as I have said, we went through a culture change programme. A programme that continues with you leading from the front as the chairman of the Culture Board. However, this culture change passed over one department that's crucial to demand reduction, the Force Control Room. I am aware that Temporary Chief Superintendent Keel is now leading a culture review within that department. But tonight is our opportunity, on behalf of the membership, to highlight what we feel needs to change. It is also an opportunity to ask you to provide the all-important top cover for the FCR Culture Review. The same top cover you have provided and continue to provide for the culture change in the rest of the force. Now, before I start, let me be absolutely clear. I am not criticising the staff, supervisors, managers, or senior managers within that department. It is, however, time to change the culture of that department. I sat with a group of inspectors from the FCR and asked them about the culture there. They painted a bleak picture. They described a culture of rigid protocols and policies that, far from guiding staff, actually bind them. They described a culture of blame and criticism, not learning. They described a culture in which getting the caller's details in the right order is far more important than the information itself. The FCR is not, and never should be, a British Gas type call centre where calls are monitored for training purposes and terms and conditions apply. When anyone joins an organisation, they rightly need policies and procedures to abide by. But there comes a point when you have to let experience and skills shine through. You need to let staff use their discretion and professional judgment. It's time to empower the staff to say, that isn't a police matter. We won't be sending an officer. Here's a number for an organisation that can help you. I am constantly told of calls that we shouldn't be attending, calls that are simply not a police matter. I have been provided with examples that I have passed on. To the man who lives next to a canal and reports swans in his garden, I say, here's the number of the RFPB. To the nursing home manager who wants us to send an officer to speak to a gentleman with advanced dementia about his behaviour, I say there's really no point. To the parents who adopted a little girl and are worried she may have inherited her birth parents' propensity to shoplift, I say, even with my extremely limited medical qualifications and out-of-date first aid certificate, I'm positive that thievery isn't genetically passed on from one generation to another. Interestingly, the current FCR policy is to remove all police officers, with the exception of inspectors and above, from the department. The rationale for this I neither know nor understand. But I am seeing officers sent back to division, some with medical conditions and restrictions. They're being removed from an operational role they can perform, an operational role to which they currently bring their skills and experience, to a role they can't fully perform. The staff within the FCR lose an important point of reference, somebody they can go to for valuable advice and guidance, somebody with years of policing experience, somebody who can sift the calls the police do not need to attend. This seems like madness to me. Perhaps it's time to push the pause button on this. But let me be frank. The FCR pressures to follow practices and procedures as opposed to the application of experience and common sense are rooted in policing's aversion to risk. It's the same risk aversion that makes us think that every repeat victim of antisocial behaviour, no matter how tenuous, is a potential Pilkington. It's the same risk aversion that makes us believe that every missing person will end up in a shallow grave on Romney Marsh. It's the same risk aversion that binds officers and staff in red tape and bureaucracy. It's got to change. We must adjust the risk dial to a level more in keeping with the resources we have. And that doesn't mean we let risk go to hell in a handcart, but it does mean we need to take a more proportionate approach to risk. Despite all our best efforts, we will never remove all risks, yet at times it appears we try to. We simply cannot continue with the same response with 1,200 fewer people. Never mind when the next round of cuts bite even deeper. Will mistakes be made? Of course they will. Mistakes are made now. Policing is all about human beings, with all the frailties involved. Chief Constable, at the beginning I talked to the theme to this year's speech, demand reduction. And I fully appreciate this is not easy. But in a context of reducing resources, it must be the force's first, second and third priority. There will be some tough choices, some competing priorities. Whilst I have concentrated on reform of the FCR, I accept that such reform will not alone provide the panacea for reducing demand. There is no single solution. We need to more effectively push back on partners. All too often we are still covering for their cuts. New mobile technology may help, but only if that's linked to a real reduction in the bureaucracy that has a voracious appetite for officers' time. Without doing that, we simply displace the same workload away from police stations. We have to ensure that our own internal policies actually support and not frustrate what officers are trying to do. We have to take a long, hard look at solving problems at the point of reporting. And we have to look beyond the political, two-dimensional view of frontline policing. The front line extends far beyond uniformed officers on patrol, as important as they are. We have to ensure we reduce the demands placed on all officers, whether it's reactive crime, public protection units, covert policing, the Serious Crime Directorate, and frankly everything in between. Their workloads need to be addressed too. We need to remember the front line doesn't always wear a uniform. Chief Constable, this force with the original Kent policing model was the mother and father of the National Intelligence Model. We can proudly say we revolutionised policing through the proactive targeting of prolific offenders. In a world of ever-shrinking resources, we must tackle demand if we are to maintain any sort of proactive capability. We must tackle demand if we are to protect the health and well-being of officers and staff. We must tackle demand if we are to stop policing from falling over. If we made one mistake with CSR1, it was focusing exclusively on the savings without applying the same attention to demand. We must not repeat this mistake. We must learn from it. You know, this will produce some difficult messages for the public, but it can be done. It must be done. Despite its so-called ring-fence funding, the public are noticing the cracks in the NHS. They are seeing the gaps in education. They are noticing the difficult choices being made by local authorities. We must not kid ourselves, or the public, that despite our can-do mentality, we are somehow immune to the effects of our cuts. The public needs to understand what changes we are making, and if we are to avoid the current popular pastime of criticising the police for everything, the public needs to understand why. The media needs to understand why. As an organisation, the force needs to be proactive with this debate. I know there are things that I can say that neither you nor the PCC can. Let us help you in delivering those difficult messages. Let us work together. Chief Constable, it's time to tell the public the truth. It's time for us to act on what we all know to be the truth. You don't get more for less. You don't even get the same for less. You only get less for less. Thank you for listening.